In a for loop, we have three different expressions inside the parentheses. So the for loop looks like this. We have the word for, and then inside of parentheses, we have three separate things. The first thing, I gets the value of 1, is an initialization of the loop or the iterator variable, which is evaluated once and only once at the very beginning of the loop. So it's almost like you take this statement and move it up above the for. We only do it once in the very beginning. The second thing, I less than or equal to n, is a condition for repeating the loop. So it's some kind of Boolean expression that is true or false that's tested at the top of the loop every time. As long as the expression is true, the action of the loop will be executed. And then the third thing, I++, is an increment of the loop variable, which is executed at the end of the action of the loop every time the action is executed. So it's almost like you take this statement and move it down underneath the action. So after you execute the action, whatever that is, you then increment I. So taken all together, what these things say is that the loop variable I is going to go from 1 to n in steps of 1, and we're going to execute the action for each value of I. But it's important to note that I needs to become greater than n in order for this condition to become false. So here's an example of a for loop that uses the iterator variable. So the for loop says I is going to go from 1 to 3 in steps of 1, and for each value of I we're going to print I is and then the current value of the variable I. So what happens is we start by initializing I to have the value 1. So let's keep track of that over here. I is 1, and we print I is 1. Then this statement gets executed that increments I to get the value 2. We check the condition. 2 is still less than or equal to 3. So we're going to print I is and the current value of I, which is 2. Then this gets executed, which increments I to 3. We check the condition. 3 is still less than or equal to 3. So we execute the action and print I is 3. Then this statement gets executed, which increments I to get the value 4. Now the condition is false. 4 is not less than or equal to 3, so that gets us out of the loop and down to the next statement, which prints, and now I is 4. So notice that the loop variable I went through the values from 1 to 3 in steps of 1, and for each one of those we printed out what I was. But then I gets the next value 4, and that's what gets us out of the loop. So important to understand that once you get out of the loop, the value of I is going to be the next value, in this case 4. Here's an example in which we're not using the iterator variable inside the loop. So again, the for loop says I is going to go from 1 to 3 in steps of 1, and for each value of I, 1, 2, and 3, we're going to execute the action which prints hello. So when I is 1, we print hello. When I is 2, we print hello. When I is 3, we print hello, and then I gets the value 4, and that gets us out of the loop. One application of a for loop in C is to calculate a running sum. So we'd have a running sum variable that we initialize to 0. In this case, we're saying that I is going to go from 1 to 5 in steps of 1. And each time we're going to add the current value of I to what we already have in the running sum. So using the shortcut operator here, this is saying we're taking run sum plus I and storing the result back in run sum. And then once we get out of the loop and we've added all of these values together, we're going to print the sum. So run sum starts out at 0. We initialize it to 0, okay, up here before the loop. Then I gets the value 1. Run sum is going to be 0 plus 1, or 1. Then I gets the value 2. Run sum will be 1 plus 2, or 3. Then I gets the value 3. Run sum will be 3 plus 3, or 6. Then I gets the value 4. Run sum will be 6 plus 4, or 10. Then I gets the value 5. Run sum will be 10 plus 5, or 15. Then I will get the value 6. That's what will make the condition false. And we go down to the next statement after the loop, which prints the sum is and the value of run sum, which is 15. So again, we added all of the values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 together, but then I got the next value 6 to get us out of the loop. Now, if we wanted to print each of the individual running sums rather than just the final result, we could add the printf statement to the action of the loop. So now instead of just adding the value of I to the running sum as the action is going to be a compound statement which will do that, but then also print each value of the running sum. So when I is 1, the sum is 1, we're going to print the sum as 1. When I is 2 and the running sum is 3, we're going to print the sum as 3. And then we print the sum as 6, and then the sum is 10, and then the sum is 15. So every single time we go through the loop and we add the next value of I to the running sum, we're going to print that result. So usually we increment I in a for loop, but you could also decrement. So this one says that I starts at 6. It's going to go down to 3 in steps of -1. So we go from 6 to 3 in steps of -1, and each time we're going to print the value of I. So we're going to print 6, and then it gets decremented, we'll print 5, and then it gets decremented, we print 4, and it gets decremented, we print 3, and then it gets decremented to 2. That's what will make the condition false and get us out of the loop. So we're printing 6, 5, 4, 3, but then I gets the next value decrementing, which would be 2. Beware of extra semicolons. Okay, so this for loop says that I is going to go from 1 to 5 in steps of 1. And it looks like we've indented this statement to make it look like it's the action of the loop, so that we would print OK 5 times. But that's actually not what happens because of this extra semicolon here. So the action of a for loop is the next statement after it, and a semicolon by itself is a valid statement. It's called the empty statement or the null statement. It doesn't do anything, but it's a valid statement. So what this for loop says is 5 times do nothing. Okay, once I do nothing, twice I do nothing, 3 times I do nothing, when I is 4 I do nothing, when I is 5 we do nothing. And then I get the value 6. That gets us out of the loop and down to the next statement, which prints OK, and then we print end. So again, we indented this printf statement to make it look like it's the action, but it isn't. This semicolon here is the action. So an extra semicolon there is going to become the action of your loop. So be careful about extra semicolons.